Good afternoon. I guess everyone should be good afternoon at this point. I'm Phil Antone. I'm the chief scientist here at what we're calling affectionately AIRC, the Acquisition Innovation Research Center. And glad you could make it. I'm glad you're interested in potentially putting in a proposal for the call that we have. I'd like to go through a few slides to give you some background, and then we'll open it up to questions for you. So for those of you that don't know, AIRC is a new entity. Its intent is to focus on defense acquisition of all things and to tap academia and you all for innovative ideas to really help the Department of Defense think through and improve defense acquisition writ large. And we're working with the government, of course, but also with industries. So it really is trying to, with an academic focus, try to work with the other elements to work through it. We were actually established by Congress, who told the department to create an entity to reach out to academia for the intent of really improving defense acquisition capabilities and outputs. And the idea is to move beyond white papers and theory papers and so on to actually demonstrate and pilot programs. So you'll see a lot of that in the innovation that's out there. And that's reflected in the mission statement that we've come up with to really work with you all to help the Department of Defense improve its policies, improve the way it manages programs, the way it educates its workforce, and so on, all focused on any aspect of defense acquisition. So the purpose of the call that we have here is to fund summer studies in academia, again, to focus on areas of innovation. We have specific topic areas, 5 areas with some more specific details within each area to target for the areas. And again, the objective is to improve defense acquisition, to hopefully set up piloted efforts to go through it. And then we're also interested, you'll probably be happy to know, with a good quality journal publications. So, seminal quality research in addition to piloting are the complementary aspects of it. So what we're looking for, these are the elements in the call, is the evaluation criteria. So, good quality research ideas, very novel ideas. We're trying to think out of the box to help the Department of Defense understand it and have a big strategic impact. So we're looking for areas where we can have an impact, new novel ideas to make a big difference. We're hoping that we leverage the relevant multidisciplinary areas within multiple fields. So that's an aspect of it that we're interested in. Since it's defense acquisition, it's a combination of engineering, program management, business, policy, education, as you'll see, even law and science and psychology. So it really is a pretty broad approach that we're trying to take to bring the right capabilities and the right disciplines to bear. And that's why we're thinking about multidisciplinary aspects, to really try to get out of the box of thinking the normal way and try to bring in some perspectives from fresh perspectives. If you happen to have worked in some of these areas, by the way, it says this in the call, I just wanted to highlight that if you think you have a sponsor who may be interested in a particular area and possibly co-funding these areas, please let us know. We have funding identified for some studies. But if we get a lot of ideas, it's always great to, we'll work with them on our side to see if they would be willing to also chip in funding to help proceed. We have the initial phase for the summer call is what we're calling phase 1. These are 75 up to 100K each. Again, we have funds for 5 to 7 of these, possibly more, depending on the quality of the results and how excited the folks in the department get in terms of the ideas that are out there. The target is to fund it in mid-June, go on for about 3 months, and really think of this as an opportunity to do some preliminary research. Think about the problem, do some experimentation maybe, but definitely connect with the users in the department and any industry experts that are out there so that you really understand what the problem is. You know, what's the inside the building challenge? Why is this so difficult? And come up with a phase 2 application pilot proposal. So it's some opportunity money to go off and develop a phase 2 proposal for initiation in the fall timeframe, to go off and then actually implement the idea. Continue to do the research, but focus it on a target area where we understand the practical applications of it, and then use that to inform the research. The pilots could be much larger than 100K, it could be 200K, it could be $1 million. It really is pilot and situation dependent. So it's up to you to come up with grand ideas and think about and tell us well, how much money is really involved on it. They could last for 1 or 2 years. The idea is to take some examples, exercise it, demonstrate capabilities. If there are leave behind capabilities, so much the better. But think about using the pilots as an opportunity to test it out and to understand practical issues, and think about scaling and institutionalization. So the objective is right not to do an interesting study that looked great but doesn't scale. We're really trying to think about how can we help institutionalize these at some point. We realize that we're in academia, we're not there to institutionalize and run programs forever. At some point industry is going to need to step in, or the department, to proceed, but we really want to try to understand in the phase 2 pilots, what does it take and what are the practical issues of doing that. So we posed these 6 questions from the Hallmeyer Criteria to help guide you when you're thinking about the proposal. The intent is to make this as simple as possible, just a 2-page proposal. We don't want to make a lot of work out of this. So try to answer these 6 questions in that limit. We realize that you'll need some endnote references and maybe a graphic or 2, and then some links to your faculty and research bios or CVs to demonstrate background capabilities and relevance. Just put those in there in that additional page, but really try to think about a very quick, succinct explanation of what it is, what are you trying to do, why would it make a difference, how much are you asking for, and what are the risks. High risk, high payoff is great. It really is trying to just understand and explain to us what your idea is and what it might do. So I'm going to run through the 5 areas quickly just to give you a sample. They're all described in detail, more detail in the call for proposals. The first one is thinking about workforce upskilling. So we have targeted areas where we're trying to help the department, and they're asking what technologies, what educational approaches are out there to help us train our workforce better. And the 2 focus areas that came out, one was on contracting officers. So in the DoD, the contracting officials are used to doing standard contracts, but there are new approaches coming up often. Some of them, for example, for agile development, some of them for what's called DevSecOps. There's some other transactions authorities. There are other areas that are ensuing. Folks are not necessarily used to them. They're not trained on them. So what kinds of approaches are out there in technology and education to really help them think about and learn new capabilities sort of on the job, or in faster classroom experience. The second one is the same kind of topic area, same question they asked us. How do we help bring our workforce to bear? And this one is in the cost estimating realm. So there are lots of folks in private sector that know how to do cost estimation, but it's a different game in the DoD. The data sets are different, the approaches are different, and so on. So again, how can we quickly help them bring those capabilities into the workforce? We had a workshop to generate some ideas to help you think through it. So those are at the other second half of this slide. These are just ideas, areas that you might consider. You don't have to propose in these areas. They're just to help get your thinking going. So competency models, cognitive assistance, simulation-based learning experiences, for example, are all ideas that our colleagues have thought of that said, these might be relevant approaches. But again, if you have some other approach that you think would be useful, we're very interested in them. The second area is related to management and business decisions as it relates to understanding the situation and the knowledge that's involved. So there were leadership in the Department of Defense said, hey, look, when I'm up for a decision, I really have very little understanding of the decisions that happened in the past, why they were made, and how does that affect the decisions that I'm trying to make right now. And then they are trying to also understand how does it affect decision making in the future. So they'll make a decision that constrains future decisions, future actions, and so on. And they oftentimes don't have a good understanding of that. So they're just making a decision in a long continuum of decisions, if you will, and are asking us, are there ways of understanding what happened in the past, understanding that's on the future? So knowledge representation ideas, maybe AI, episodic memories, model-based storytelling, were other ideas, again, that came up as possible approaches. But again, think about what it is. It doesn't have to be any of these. How could we actually help the Department of Defense make better decisions informed by what happened in the past and what the effect might be in the future? The third area, if you're familiar at all with the government, there's a pretty big problem of incentives alignment. So how do we, when we want to make the government more agile, more innovative, making better decisions, more cost effective, and so on, we actually don't have the incentives aligned. In fact, we have, in some cases, disincentives for agility and innovation that drive people to be very conservative, to stick with the old ways, not try new ways, to be much more risk averse, and so on. So this task is really sort of a grand challenge, if you will, in terms of how can we actually attack the core problem in culture and innovation within the department. So how do we align incentives? How do we deal with that? Also thinking not only in the Department of Defense, but the contractors that support the department. Oftentimes they're not innovative. They're not thinking about new agile fashions. They're in the old mode. They're used to particular business models and performance incentives. And we're trying to also change them to be more reactive and to be more responsive as we're dealing with new challenges, new threats, new technologies, and new approaches. So again, at the bottom, here's some ideas of areas that came up in some brainstorming for your consideration, organizational mapping, thinking about workforce. That's been the one I've dealt with when I've been in management. I want to think about what's the promotion criteria. If they're not going to get promoted for taking risks, and managing through it, then why would they? They're gonna be very conservative. Performance evaluation, maybe career experimentation credits, and so on. So really help us think about how do we actually tackle a cultural and an incentive problem in the department, and then go off and pilot it, right? Pick through programs, pick a set of workforce and run them through a pilot. Let's see if it works. Let's try out the ideas and then learn from that and continue to find ways where they can actually institutionalize it. The fourth area is related to test and evaluation in the department. So the department trying to move faster, trying to do acquisition and development much more quickly. The test and evaluation world originally was very set up to spend a lot of time. Let's make certain we understand everything. Let's get the bugs out. Let's spend a year or two in test and evaluation. Well, we know we can't do that anymore if we're doing agile software development or the threats changing and so on. We need better techniques to move faster. So here are a set of challenges that cut across various aspects of that, from moving more agilely to thinking about how do we do validation, verification, accreditation, to how do we deal with current technology issues of interest. So for example, artificial intelligence, how do we test these things, particularly if they're learning? So what kinds of approaches can we do for dealing with that? or cybersecurity, which is a big deal now in the government and the department. How do we actually test for cybersecurity, but do it quickly and efficiently so that we're not holding up the systems, but we can manage and balance the risks. Here at the bottom again are some ideas, holistic assurance frameworks and validation frameworks, ideas about can we use models that are used at different stages in acquisition, try to integrate and share among them so that we can move faster when we're doing a different test and evaluation. Finally, another sort of out of the box idea that came from the department was thinking about the return on investment when you're trying to manage in a digital transformation environment. So for example, the department's been very interested for years in data science, and before that, big data and analytics, saying, okay, it sounds great, but when it comes to actually finding budget within the government, it's much harder to argue for that return on investment to get the money that we need to be able to go off and implement infrastructure, develop tools, collect the data, and so on. So are there models that are out there for how do we assess return on investment, maybe from the private industry in terms of arguing for money and showing the value to the institution and the core mission of the area. It's also a little broader than that. So every decision to some extent is really a return on investment. So we're making decisions within program management. We're making decisions in terms of portfolios of programs and acquisition. So how do we understand what that return on investment is across those various capabilities? And again, we believe there are some ROI practices in industry. There may be some others in economics or in other areas that you can propose to help us tackle this problem. The schedule that we have for these proposals, so we're in the middle of it. The call came out on Monday the 19th. Today we're at the 28th. We wanted to open it up in case you had any questions to discuss it. The proposals are due on May 14th. Oh, excuse me. Back in, we're going to do some prioritization and assessments within AIRC, and then ultimately the solution, the decisions for what we're going to get funded are going to be made by a review panel in the DoD. Just so you know, it may be a little confusing. This is not a government proposal. This is really a proposal on AIRC for on behalf of the DoD out into academia to collect those ideas and assemble them and propose them back into the department. So the proposals would come through AIRC, and then the awards would come back through AIRC about mid-June as we get through it. So, we're here to help you connect with these problems and help the department, connect with you. And that's our role, is to facilitate that engagement. So we're going to work in coordination with the DoD, help them we'll do some prioritizations, but ultimately they'll select it based on the value that they see in the proposal, the uniqueness, and so on. And again, the idea is we'll spend the summer doing research on it, develop plans. We may have some kind of an event in mid-September timeframe to come back, present your plans and so on, and then we'll have another selection process there for phase 2 funding. So that's what we have for you today. We're here with the AIRC leadership and some other folks to help you understand, how do we propose. If there are any questions about eligibility or anything, we're here to answer those questions. So I don't know if we want to, Kara, did we have any questions online or?
No, we just had one that Dinesh had already answered.
Okay.
But we did have a question just come in. Can organizations put in more than one application?
Yes, I believe so.
And by organizations, I just want to clarify that it's universities.
Yes.
That is correct.
So Molly, yes, the answer is yes.
Was there a question in the chat? So limited to universities, yeah. So the funding will come through AIRC from the DoD to university institutions. We realize that the phase 2 proposals will probably include maybe elements of a small business or others that support from an FFRDC or a think tank. So the funding that comes through AIRC right now is limited to academia, but there may be mechanisms, and we're working to explore them to have maybe parallel funding. If it's a FFRDC or think tank, the DoD may fund them separately and align it to propose it. If there's a small business, we're looking into whether small business innovation research or SDTRs is a possibility for the DoD to fund that way. So think about who are the right organizations in the phase 2 that really need to be involved, and let us know. Put that in your proposals for phase 2, and then we'll work with you to try to find funding mechanisms to it. The core idea is that, right, this is academia thinking about new innovative ideas, but we realize that there are probably relationships with other institutions, advice from FFRDCs who understand the problem, or small businesses that have key technology and so on, that you would want some intellectual participation versus, say, just buying software to get involved. I don't think I wouldn't consider it 6.1 research in the fact that it's applied. Maybe it's 6.2, 6.3-ish kind of research. It's really that application, and we want to make a difference. That, to me, I would consider that applied, but I would think of it that way, and that it's not incentives theory in general. It's really, how do I attack this incentives problem, say in the Department of Defense. Let's see. Did I miss anything earlier on in the list?
There was one that you just missed. It was asking, is a budget part of the submission or just a ROM number?
I think just a ROM.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, we're not looking for a full budget at this point.
Top line, yeah, don't waste your time. We're trying to make this as easy as possible. Yes, I need 100K, Phil. No, 75 is probably good. And then, the detailed budget later for what Kara would need for funding and working through it. There was one. Do I have to submit a phase 1 project for a phase 2 proposal? I don't think so. I can't imagine one, unless Dinesh or Tom or Carrie have an idea about why is there a requirement. This isn't the SBIR, right? Phase 1 and phase 2. This is meant to be helpful to you to have some time to do some preliminary research. But if you have a great idea that's very innovative and you come forward in phase 2, I can't think off the top of my head of a reason. I don't know. Dinesh, did you have a thought on that?
No, I think as part of this program, we are saying that they're phased, phase 1 and phase 2. If anybody in academia has a good idea, separate and aside from what was discussed in the forum, we have other mechanisms to get those ideas in front of the sponsors. But as part of this program, we're really talking about phase 1 ideas that get funded, that then graduate to phase 2 as a function of what they've been able to do over the 3 months or so.
Yeah. Andrew also asked who's qualified and not qualified to submit. So it's from academia, research faculty, researchers, students that are associated with the universities, I believe. So it's, as long as it's academia, we're good. I don't know if that fully answered the question. 6.1. Are these limited to SERC members? So we're working to try to make this as open to academia as possible. So some of you may know, the SERC is not really held by one university. It's a consortium really of sorts of 22 partner universities. And the idea is to try to bridge out to academia as possible. And AIRC is really a part of the SERC organization in York. And so we leverage that partnership. It's easier to fund studies at SERC, AIRC partner universities, but we have other mechanisms that we can work with you to bring you on board. Fellows at one of the institutions, we can set that up. We're talking to our contracting officers to understand, do we have some more flexibility for, especially for smaller studies to bring it in at non-SERC universities. So don't feel constrained from that perspective, but let us know what the relationship is. Also, if you demonstrate something that's very compelling to the Department of Defense, that might motivate them on the contractual side to say, fine, we'll let that work as we go through the contractual part of it. Let's see. Did that answer everyone's questions? There are some sort of similar questions to the ones I answered earlier. And feel free, you can take your mic off if you want to ask directly at this point.
Yeah, hi Phil, my name's Layla. I work with an organization called Mile 2, and we have a very strong academic presence, but we are, considered a small business. And that's why I was kind of wondering, if we did submit a proposal, are we going to be rejected right away if we are not a university or partnered with a university?
I think so. And I mean, you're imagining it that this would be from you versus the university faculty members, say, doing some preliminary thinking and then propose in phase 2 that you would be, some kind of coordination within it. I think so. It really is targeted towards the universities especially for phase 1. But that doesn't cut out thinking about, what is that relationship in phase 2.
Okay, because we have some, a lot of our experts in-house, do cognitive systems engineering. We have experts in-house like John Flack, who has been present in academia for many years, right? And a big presence in human factors. So we do a lot of research and development, but we also do product development. So we're just trying to see if this is an opportunity we should pursue, or if we should reach out to our OSU affiliates and try to come up with kind of a joint proposal.
Yeah, I think and again, Dinesh, you may have some additional thoughts, but the initial thought really should be a faculty proposal for the summer studies. And then let us know how on phase 2, what you think the relationship would need to be, and we can try to think about, how the co-funding would go to the small business, because our funding really does need to stay in.
So I think to your point, UARCs certainly cannot accept funds from industry, and we cannot send funds to industry. We're limited to sending funds only to academia. And as Phil was alluding to earlier, when we get to phase 2 and we think of a larger effort, we're looking at other programs that we can partner with so that our academic colleagues, our faculty colleagues and researchers can work with small businesses and others through parallel funding mechanisms that Phil alluded to. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi, Phil. This is Mike Walker from CAPE.
Hey, Mike.
How are you today?
Great, thanks.
So we have a research collaborator who recently moved. He's on faculty now at a university in Madrid. We also have folks on our research team, though, that are affiliated with universities in the United States. As long as the funding can flow to those U.S. universities. Is it an issue that we have a collaborator who's on faculty at a non-US institution?
I
Well-
don't think so, Phil. I think it'll be fine.
Okay.
As we just cannot have funds go to non-US universities, Mike. As long as the funds are going to a US-based universities, all of us have colleagues, that may be from universities in Europe. And right now we're in the idea generation mode, so that's quite okay.
Okay, thank you. And I obviously acknowledge data security classification issues there, tracking that.
Yeah.
Right,
thank you.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to raise at the end. If it's U.S. persons or CY or something like that, but yeah, I think if it's generic, then based on what Dinesh said, we're in good shape.
So this is sorry, go ahead.
Dinesh, so Greg Sanders asked about subcontracting. Is that allowed under the UARC restrictions?
No, our contracting officers are very strict about that. We cannot have subcontract agreements with industry either, unfortunately. So think of this program as really truly limited to academia. And it's quite okay for somebody from industry to be an adjunct faculty member and engage with the university team as part of their role as an adjunct faculty member at that university. That would work. So universities often have flexibilities with regard to engaging folks who are non-traditional faculty to get involved with research. Those we're okay with. We just cannot have funds flow from that university to a non-academic entity.
Great, thanks, Dinesh. Great. Any other questions? Oh, there's one. So is a DoD employee collaboration acceptable? I believe that the DoD employee can participate, they just won't get paid. It would be part of their day job, if you will. So if, Mike Walker or Colonel Walker, someone's, supporting it, advising, contributing at some point, the funds can't go to them to pay a DoD employee. That would not work, but they can certainly be participating. In fact, we're hoping that the researchers would establish good relationships and to really understand what is the DoD problem and why is this so hard, and the practical aspects of it. We have champions for each of these questions, so-called champions that are leaders in the DoD that will help make connections for us to folks in the military services or the operational commands and so on, so that we can have those kinds of connections. But certainly, if you know someone that is willing to help out, that could actually be great.
Bill, Stoney here. My read of Elizabeth's questions, is it favorable? I would have a hard time thinking how it would not be favorable. I mean, these questions, as you described, these topic areas are so grounded in the realities of DoD work that the most likely to succeed projects would all include some DoD collaboration.
Yes, I mean, we're not looking for, the untainted that don't know anything about the Department of Defense. So yes, if you know someone and communicate with them, as Stoney said, that really is helpful. Conversely, if you really don't know, but you're saying, wow, they have an incentives problem. I mean, we've got incentives theory. We have all these other approaches, and that would be great. Here's an opportunity to try them out and find out, why it doesn't work, or make a difference, and so on. right, the whole intent of phase one really is to help think about the intellectual part of it, but also the defense connection. So, you know, it's there to help improve those connections and get them to you. So if you have it, great. If you don't have it, that's what phase one is for. It's really, you know, we want to have those innovative ideas to move forward. So did someone else have a question? Someone's box said lit up. I didn't know if there was a question. Not. Well, we really appreciate your time and interest in this. We still have an open email. If you have any further questions, feel free to send us an email and we'll get the answer back out to you. Yes. I look forward to a large number of very innovative ideas. This should be fun. For those of you that haven't worked with the DoD, they really do have some interesting challenges, and it can make very interesting academic research. So I was in the building for 6 years, and I've done my own research out from the outside. It really is fascinating, really, to find out the problem and then to work through it. And you know, I can come up with my initial theoretical recommendations, but running them against the lawyers and running them against the practicalities really introduces some pretty fascinating, you know, complications that just enriches the research and makes it more fun. So hopefully you'll put your heads and scratch your heads and come together with some ideas, and we'll look forward to reading them.